Caitlin Markham was born on August 16, 1989, in Fairfield, Ohio. Raised in a loving home with her parents and younger sister, she had a natural gift for connecting with people, even as a child. The shyest kids on the playground would soon be laughing and playing when Caitlin was around. Creative at heart, Caitlin loved to sing, draw, and express herself through art. That passion led her to study graphic design at a local university, where she was approaching graduation. By the summer of 2011, Caitlin's life was on the verge of a new chapter. She was preparing for her final exams and making plans to move to Colorado with her fiancé, John. The couple had been together for 6 years and got engaged the year before. They dreamed of starting fresh in a new city and planned to marry after the move. But everything changed on the morning of August 14th. Caitlin was scheduled to work a shift at the bridal shop where she worked part-time, but she never showed up. Her friends and family tried calling and texting her, but got no response. Initially, they thought she might be caught up with something. But by evening, the silence had stretched too long. Her fiancé John decided to check on her in person. Her car was parked outside her apartment. The door was unlocked. Inside, her dog was the only one home. There were no signs of a struggle. Nothing appeared out of place. But one thing stood out. Caitlin's keys, wallet, and ID were still inside. If she had left on her own, she would have taken at least her keys. Something didn't feel right. John called the police. He told them he had last seen Caitlin the night before. They had spent the evening together at her apartment with a mutual friend. After their friend left, John went to a party while Caitlin stayed behind to study. Later that night, they exchanged a few texts, but by morning, she had stopped replying, something that had never happened before. Police began reaching out to her family and friends, but no one had spoken to her since the previous night. Everyone insisted this wasn't like her. She was focused on her exams and excited about her upcoming birthday. Disappearing without a word didn't make sense. With growing suspicion, police launched a formal search. More than 100 volunteers joined in, scouring nearby areas. Flyers with Caitlin's photo were posted across the city. Naturally, the investigation began with those closest to her, starting with John. Officers noticed a few scratches on his neck, but he explained they were from shaving. He agreed to take a voice stress test. The results were inconclusive, neither confirming deception nor ruling it out. Still, John remained fully cooperative. He answered questions, joined search efforts, and gave interviews to the media. Investigators verified his alibi. He had indeed been at a party the night of Caitlin's disappearance, and data from his laptop confirmed that he returned home and watched a movie afterward. Detectives also spoke to the mutual friend who'd been with them that evening. He confirmed Caitlin was quieter than usual, mostly studying. He assumed the stress of exams was weighing on her. John's account checked out, and attention turned elsewhere. A phone warrant revealed Caitlin's phone had been turned off at 12:06 a.m., with no activity since. About half an hour before that, she'd sent John a photo, lining up with his story. Despite a massive effort, no trace of Caitlin was found. Police expanded the search. Volunteers combed forests, rivers, abandoned buildings, anything that might offer a clue. Weeks passed. The media picked up the story, but still, there was nothing. Caitlin Markham had vanished without a trace. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support means a lot to us and helps us grow. A huge thank you to everyone who's been watching. As the search for Caitlin Markham dragged on, her fiancé John remained visibly involved, helping organize efforts, putting up flyers, and speaking to the press. But as weeks turned into months with no leads, whispers began to circulate. People in town started to suspect John might have been involved in her disappearance. Eventually, those rumors reached him. He addressed the accusations head-on, saying he didn't have time for speculation. His only focus was bringing Caitlin home. The police publicly supported his stance. They confirmed that his alibi checked out. He had consented to searches of his home without a warrant and had fully cooperated throughout the investigation. Still, the suspicion weighed on him. He later shared an incident where, while posting flyers, a woman casually commented that it was usually the boyfriend in these cases, unaware she was speaking to him. Despite months of searching, no trace of Caitlin was found. The official search effort was eventually called off. The investigation continued behind the scenes, with detectives sifting through hundreds of tips from across the country. None led anywhere. The reward for information climbed to $50,000, but the case remained ice cold. Then, nearly a year later, a strange break came from hundreds of miles away. In Miami, police arrested a 28-year-old man for assaulting a college student. At first, it seemed unrelated, until investigators realized he had been living across the street from Caitlin's apartment at the time of her disappearance. Detectives traveled to Florida and questioned him extensively. But after confirming his whereabouts the night Caitlin vanished, they ruled him out completely. The case sat dormant for another year, until April 10th, 2013. That morning, in Cedar Lake, Indiana, a man scavenging for scrap metal spotted a black tarp near the edge of the woods. Curious, he approached it. Inside, he found a set of human bones. Horrified, he called police. A second bag nearby contained a human skull. The remains were quickly sent for analysis. Dental records confirmed the worst. It was Caitlin Markham. Her body had been dismembered and dumped in the woods, just beside a pile of trash. The killer hadn't even bothered to bury her. Due to the severe decomposition, forensic experts couldn't determine a clear cause of death, but they did find evidence of a stab wound on one of her arm bones. It was enough to classify her death as a homicide. The fact that her remains were found in another state complicated the investigation. Now, both Indiana and Ohio authorities were involved. They believed Caitlin's body had likely been kept elsewhere and moved later, possibly when the killer feared it might be discovered. With few answers, Caitlin's father took matters into his own hands. In 2015, frustrated by the pace of the investigation, he hired a private detective. The PI conducted his own inquiry, interviewed those close to Caitlin, and identified 2 potential suspects. He passed the information to the police, but the details were never made public. That same year, the reward was increased to $75,000. Still, no progress. Caitlin's father pushed to have the case moved from the local police to the county level. By the end of 2015, he succeeded. A new team of detectives took over and started from scratch. In 2016, those investigators told reporters they had a prime suspect, someone they believed was responsible for Caitlin's murder. But without hard evidence, they couldn't make an arrest. They withheld the name, and the case stalled again. 2 years later, in 2018, another murder shook a nearby town. A young woman was found dead in a case eerily similar to Caitlin's. Police quickly identified a suspect named Michael, who had reportedly stalked the victim before killing her. While exploring possible links, investigators found a surprising photo on Michael's social media. It was from a music festival, and standing next to him in the picture was Caitlin's fiancé, John. John confirmed they'd met briefly at the festival, but insisted they barely spoke. Despite the striking coincidence, detectives found no further connection between Michael and Caitlin's murder. Then, in 2023, over a decade after Caitlin vanished, there was a stunning development. Police announced an arrest in her case. The man's name was Jonathan. He wasn't a stranger. He had been a close friend of both Caitlin and John. Initially, police withheld details about the first arrest in Caitlin Markham's case. But just 2 months later, they made another shocking move. Caitlin's fiancé, John Carter, was arrested for her murder. It was only then that investigators revealed what had been uncovered over the years. When county detectives took over the case, they started from scratch. And from the beginning, they found John's behavior troubling, starting with his 911 call. To them, it sounded rehearsed, almost like he was reading from a script. His early statements to officers gave off the same impression. Digging deeper, detectives reviewed recordings of past interviews with Caitlin and John's mutual friends. Many had already shared disturbing concerns back in 2011. According to them, Caitlin had confided that her relationship with John had become rocky. She had considered breaking up with him, citing drug use, aggressive behavior, and a fixation on disturbing adult content. Then came a forgotten detail from witness statements dating back to the night Caitlin vanished. Around 2 a.m., 2 teenagers sneaking out for a party passed by John's mother's home. They saw 2 vehicles approach with headlights off. John exited one, briefly entered the house, and then returned to drive off, with neither car ever turning on its lights. This directly contradicted John's alibi, that he'd been home watching a movie. Investigators later confirmed that the only proof of this alibi was some open tabs on his laptop. There was no confirmation he'd actually been home at all. In fact, witnesses had seen him behaving suspiciously at the exact time Caitlin disappeared. The red flags kept piling up. John's phone had been powered off just 2 minutes before Caitlin's, and stayed off for 15 hours. He had also deleted messages he'd sent to her that night. Early on, he told police she never responded to his usual good morning text. But investigators later discovered he hadn't sent that message in the first place. Neighbors also reported hearing troubling sounds from Caitlin's apartment that night. Arguing, banging, and someone softly repeating the word no. John insisted there was no fight, and oddly, the original investigators never pursued this lead. As detectives re-interviewed Caitlin's friends, another disturbing revelation came to light. One friend said that just months after Caitlin went missing, John confessed romantic feelings for her. She was stunned, especially considering he was still appearing in the media, expressing heartbreak over Caitlin's disappearance. Eventually, police secured a warrant to search John's mother's house. There, they found a black tarp, identical to the one used to wrap Caitlin's remains. Inside John's old room, they also discovered poems written in his handwriting. One stood out, "Deep down, I love her. You have to kill her, but I love her. She has to die." Police also uncovered troubling footage showing John yelling at his current wife while holding their child. He now had a family of his own, but signs of volatility remained. Another critical clue. The wooded area where Caitlin's remains were found lay along a route John often took to his father's farm. He knew that area well. With all this evidence in hand, investigators confronted John. He denied everything. When pressed about the inconsistencies, he calmly said it was all circumstantial, and he wasn't wrong. None of it was definitive proof. Without concrete forensic evidence, prosecutors knew a conviction would be difficult. Still, they had enough to arrest him for providing false statements based on the witness accounts. But there was more. The teenagers who saw John that night noted he wasn't alone. Another car had pulled up with him. Detectives turned their focus to his longtime friend, Jonathan, the same man previously arrested. Jonathan had also appeared in that same group photo from the music festival, standing beside John and a convicted killer. Re-examining Jonathan's interviews, detectives decided to arrest him too, also for false statements. They didn't release many details at the time, but just 2 months later, they brought charges against John himself. Yet, the case remained fragile. The detectives hoped Jonathan might crack and confess. They believed someone had helped John dispose of Caitlin's body, and Jonathan was the likely accomplice. But both men denied any involvement. John eventually posted a $1 million bond and was released pending trial. The case, though finally moving forward, was still hanging by a thread. Faced with a weak case and fearing that a jury would acquit John Carter, prosecutors made a bold move. They offered him a plea deal, reduced the charge to third-degree murder in exchange for a confession. John accepted. In June 2024, he stood before a judge and pleaded guilty. Under the terms of the deal, he wasn't required to explain what happened that night, and he didn't. He offered no details, no apology. The judge handed down the maximum sentence allowed under Ohio law for third-degree murder, 3 years in prison. The public reaction was explosive. Outrage spread nationwide. But legally, the judge's hands were tied. Without the plea, John likely would have walked free. There was no physical evidence for a first-degree murder conviction, just suspicion and circumstantial clues. Jonathan, John's longtime friend, walked away as well. All charges against him were dropped for the same reason: no evidence linking him to the disposal of Caitlin's body. For Caitlin's father, the sentence was secondary. What haunted him most was the lack of answers. He admitted that for years, he doubted John's involvement. The man had hugged him at Caitlin's funeral, stayed in touch, grieved with the family. And yet, he was the one responsible all along. Soon after John entered prison, a new twist surfaced. His cellmate contacted police and claimed John had confessed. According to the inmate, the murder began with a heated argument. John lost control, strangled Caitlin, panicked, and considered calling the police. He even thought about staging the scene to look like a suicide, but ultimately decided to hide her body. Detectives were skeptical. The story fit the timeline and known facts a little too well. They suspected John may have crafted a believable tale. Whether or not it was true remained unclear. Some investigators believed this wasn't a crime of passion, but premeditated. One detective described John as a textbook psychopath. In his words, out of all the criminals he'd interviewed, John was different, colder, calculated. Regardless, the sentence couldn't be changed. John Carter will walk free in 2027 at age 39. For Caitlin's parents, closure remains out of reach. Even if John confessed in full, they admitted they might never believe him. All they can do now is wait and watch, as the man who took their daughter's life prepares to re-enter society. Meanwhile, police continue to investigate possible connections between John, Jonathan, and the convicted murderer from that 2018 case. Some detectives believe the trio may have shared more than just social circles, perhaps something darker, but so far no proof has surfaced. Not yet. Be sure to let us know what you think of the story in the comments below. And if you like this video, smash the like button and don't forget to subscribe. A playlist is going to pop up right now with more videos you'll love. See you guys next time.